in the past with me getting flagrant fouls really for nothing. When you compare that to the one that I got, which I thought I didn't hit him. I didn't elbow him. I might have touched him, but I don't think he deserved the flagrant. If you're going to compare those two, those are tough plays, and I just thought, should have been a flagrant too.
So welcome back to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols, still joined by Matt Barnes, Paul Pierce. And guys, that was Joel Embiid talking about LeBron's hard foul on him last night in comparison to his foul on Anthony Davis. Paul, do you think Joel has a point?
You know what, Rach? I come from a different era. To me, that wasn't even that flagrant. I mean, I thought LeBron really put his arms out to prevent him from getting dunked on. It wasn't like, I thought Joel just kind of fell bad. And since he fell right on his back, it made it look worse than it really was. So in my eyes, in my era, that's not even a flagrant. And so I don't know, but it's a different league today. And, if you fall hard or you yell or you put your hand over your eye, it's a flagrant these days.
No, I completely agree, and I've had my fair share of flagrants and flagrant twos. And to me, when you guys said hard foul, I didn't even think it was a hard foul. I think the situation was that Embiid was just off balance, and like I said, LeBron didn't do a full push motion. He just put his hands out to kind of embrace himself because he knew he was about to get dunked on. But Embiid was off balance, so a flagrant foul in today's game, I understand, but definitely not a flagrant two by any means.
Yeah, it's interesting. Doc Rivers, your old coach, Paul, agreed with you. He said, first of all, LeBron is not a dirty player, according to Doc. And he also said it was just a physical play. Doc said they had to call it a flagrant. But he said all the flagrants tonight, and that includes Embiid's, by the way. Doc said, you get a flagrant for anything these days, basically. It was just, to his point, it was sort of the same thing as yours, saying, hey, back in the day, we just called those hard fouls. I think one of the things that frustrated Joel was the sort of discrepancy, right? So he gets called for that call on AD, and he sort of feels like, well, okay, what happened here was worse or just as bad or anything like that. But it is true. It's a different game, gentlemen, than when you guys were in your prime. I'm just saying that. I want to stick with this game, though, and focus on the Sixers. Paul, what did you learn about Philadelphia after that win over the Lakers?
You know what, Rachel, truthfully, I haven't learned much. And this is why. Because, yes, they've gotten better because I think they've gotten better coaching. And I think Embiid came back a better player. But in order for this team to take the next step, and I mean serious contention, I believe that Ben Simmons, he has to get better. He has to be a better player for them. Since his rookie year, I don't think he's elevated his game to superstar status, because you remember we said this guy could be the next LeBron. We looked at his build, his athletic ability, the way he passed the ball, but he just never took his game to that next level since rookie year. Yeah, they'll be better because they have better coaching, better discipline, but I didn't learn much. You learn more about teams once they get in the playoffs, because right now, I think the Celtics don't sweep them. The Sixers win maybe 2 games. That's probably what I learned.
Still early in the season, so it's hard to really tell, what a team is about. What I do love is I feel like Doc has empowered these guys and have them believing in themselves. And I agree with Paul to an extent. I think, we haven't seen the jump from Ben that we thought we were going to see after his, first couple great seasons. But we see Embiid playing at an all-star level. Ben Simmons is right around that triple-double. But to me, if Tobias Harris can be this consistent guy that he's been of late, he had a great season with Doc in L.A., and now he's out there playing very confident. And they always needed someone to fill that Jimmy Butler role. Although Jimmy wasn't there long, he was the guy down the stretch that made plays for everyone else and hit big shots. And Tobias is that talented, and he's the highest paid player on that team. So Tobias has had a great season. I think Doc has empowered him. And if he could be their go-to guy at the end to be able to hit big shots, I think Philly's going to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge difference for them. And what Doc has done is kind of doubled down on what he thinks his guys are good at. So he has definitely told Joel, we're giving you the keys. You are going to be the main guy our franchise is built around. But he has also said to Ben, I'm not going to try to turn you into something you're not. He's really emphasized what Ben's strengths are. Ben is great around the basket. And defensively, man, if you took him off this team, They would be an entire different defensive presence. So what Doc is trying to do is say, hey, do what you're good at. Do that to the best of your ability. We won't try to ask you to do too many other things. And Tobias's game picking back up obviously helps him with that. I'm interested in this Philly team, but the East, man, the East is hopping. The Nets going on, the Bucks still presence, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Celtics want to make a statement, Philadelphia, and then you've got the defending Eastern Conference champions, the Miami Heat, which we will get to later in the show. But right first, I want to check out Utah because, boy, they are the NBA's hottest team, people. Last night, the Jazz beat the Mavericks 116-104 without the services of Donovan Mitchell, who is in the concussion protocol. Rudy Gobert scored 29, grabbed 20 rebounds. Jordan Clarkson came off the bench to drop 31. Paul, what does this win without Donovan Mitchell tell you about how good the Jazz can be?
Well, this tells me that they're a very well-coached and disciplined team. You know, they can play with or without their star. Utah, what more can you say about them? They're going to be in the mix every year, but there's just something they're missing. You know, when I want to put them up there in the ranks of playing the Los Angeles Lakers possibly to a 7-game, or even, you know, pushing the Denver Nuggets again this year. It's just something I feel like they're missing, but they're having a great year. Maybe they learned from the series last year and they're building on that. But this tells me they're well coached, man. And I love Snyder over there. He's doing an excellent job, you know, through all the protocols, through all missing their stars. Yep. You know, Rudy Gobert, it seems like he's motivated after Shaq called him out. And so I really like this team moving forward.
I agree with Paul. I think they're a great coach team. They remind me of, you know, an up-and-coming San Antonio team, although they don't have the star assets. But like I said, well-coached, good organization, and it's a system where you can plug players in and out. Obviously, I don't think they can consistently win without their best player, but they do have some talent out there, and I agree with Paul. I really feel like they're that one piece away. And I think, Rachel, we talked earlier in the week about this. If they stay on this pace with 2 or 3, you know, at the trade deadline, do they try to go after someone like a Zach LaVine or possibly a Bradley Beal? And I feel like either one of those players would definitely put them over the hump, because I really feel like they need that one more consistent scorer that's going to be in that 20 to 25 point a game range for them to make real noise in the Western Conference.
And Matt, I know that there's been some pushback from Jazz fans going, well, what about Jordan Clarkson, man? And he is certainly, I think, the leading candidate right now for Sixth Man of the Year. But that's different from what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, great 6-man. You know, you need a starter that's going to fill that role. Jordan Clarkson's been playing his heart out this season. It looked like he really found a home. They rewarded him for his play, so I'm really happy with him. So you want Jordan Clarkson and Mike Conley to be those 3rd and 4th options, but you need that consistent 2nd option, because I don't see you getting 29 and 20 every night from big fella.
Well, of course, getting Donovan Mitchell back will help with all of that for sure. All right, guys, here's what the Jump recommends. Draft guru Mike Schmitz. He's going to tell us how his latest top 5 is shaping up. And there's this from last night. LeBron James given a flagrant 1 for this contact with Joel Embiid. Now, after the game, Embiid said LeBron should have been ejected. Is that BS or real talk? Our guys will weigh in on that. First, though, when you score 47 points in an NBA game, it is supposed to be a good night. But good nights have been hard to come by for Bradley Beal or the Wizards these days, and last night was no exception. Yes, Beal scored 47, including 6 three-pointers to go along with 6 assists and 4 steals. But the Pelicans' Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram each dropped 32 themselves to hand the Wizards yet another loss. Washington now has the worst record in the NBA, and there are a lot of reasons for that. The franchise has been more wrecked by COVID issues than any other team. Starting center Thomas Bryant suffering a devastating season-ending torn ACL, and trading John Wall for Russell Westbrook has not, at least so far, paid off. But the bottom line result is that Beal, the NBA's leading scorer right now, keeps turning in spectacular performances, and the Wizards have not been able to turn that into any momentum. Here is what Beal has done in the team's last 6 games, and look at the win-loss column next to each effort. Now you can zoom out to the past 2 years overall. Washington has lost all 10 of the last 10 games in which Beal has scored 40 or more. That's the worst such streak ever in the entire 75-year history of the NBA. So it's probably not a surprise that toward the end of last night's game, the cameras caught Beal looking pretty fed up. He would later say he was just upset about this particular loss. He added he wants to be more careful about his body language. But then his wife tweeted this, quote, "sick of it," fueling speculation all over again that Beal might indeed be exasperated enough by the whole situation to ask for a trade. So what is Brad really thinking? Here was the man himself after the game.
We have to be better defensively, accepting those challenges, stop turning the ball over, getting our guys back healthy. So it's a lot. It's a lot for us to do in order for us to really turn this thing around. But our confidence is still high, like G said. We can't have the mindset of being 3-11. So come Friday, we got another tough.
And a quick second, are you frustrated?
Is the sky blue? My man.
So Beal is frustrated, but as you can see there, still sounds pretty committed to trying to make this work. And I know our first guest today, Scott Brooks, just as frustrated by all those numbers I read off as Brad is, and also frustrated by the fact that forget any regular practices, Scott, you have barely been able to get your team in one place so far this season. So welcome in. We really appreciate you being with us today. And I just want to start there to give some perspective to why it has been so hard to win basketball games of late. You guys went through a stretch of 6 postponed games due to COVID. But even before or after that, you and I talked about a week ago, it's been hard to even know who's going to be on the roster day to day, right?
I agree with you, Rachel. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and the sky is blue. We're all frustrated. And I know Brad. Brad is a winning basketball player. He's been as competitive as any guy I've ever coached or even played with. And he's frustrated like we all are. And all family members are, all of our families. We're invested in this. And it's been tough. These are things that we cannot control. And it all started basically with that Miami game. That morning, Russell Westbrook was going to be out with a quad injury. They told me, Brad, about an hour before the game that he's going to be out because of contract tracing. And then a minute into that game, Thomas Bryant hurts his knee and he's out all year. And then after that, it seems like every other day we had a player in the protocol, health and protocol with the COVID. And it's like 7 players there. And we didn't practice for like 9 days. Didn't even see our guys. I only saw them occasionally in the parking lot when we were doing our testing.
Oh, wow.
and then when we did practice for 3 days, we only had 8 guys. And then we start the trip on a three games in 4 nights. Brad has been leading us, and unfortunately, a lot of the things that happen to us we can't control. But we do have some, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We should have maybe 3 to 4, maybe even 5 guys back next game. So that's good to hear. It was, we got into our trip last night, like 4 a.m., and I could not wait to get to the practice site. I get to see those 5 or 6 guys practice. So things are going to be looking up. But yeah, frustration, everybody is. We all are.
Yeah, and look, I know you're as aware of the numbers as we are. I know you guys dive into those even more deeply. The effort that Brad is turning in, he's not just putting up these incredible performances. He's positive in plus minus, which is almost impossible given what else has been going on. I mean, it's crazy how efficient he has been, and yet it is not translating into winning. What conversations do you have with him along the way to keep him engaged in that situation?
I just keep telling him, keep leading us. It's hard to lead a team that's, with all the things that has happened to us, but he has, and to his credit, he has led us. And he's, like I said, he's a winning basketball player. He impacts winning. We're not winning right now. And if we were, he would be in the MVP talk right now. But, he's a guy that believes in what we're doing. And we just have to keep chugging along. And I think our guys are understanding that. Like I said, we're going to have some guys coming back. Things are going to be starting to look up for us, but Brad is a big part of what we do, and I couldn't ask for a better guy to coach.
Yeah, I mean, he is the NBA's leading scorer right now, and as you note, he is so team-oriented, he is loyal, he doesn't pop off and cause a lot of problems for you that as a coach you have to come back and try to fix, and that's the kind of guy that, frankly, a lot of teams want. The NBA is a competitive business. Other teams are not just sitting there feeling bad for you guys, what you've been through the last couple weeks. What is it like to coach in an environment where there are probably 25 other organizations out there that would love to have Bradley Beal on their team and are frankly hoping things in D.C. blow up to the point he requests a trade?
Boy, I tell the guys all the time, nobody feels sorry for us. Nobody. The only guys in their locker room that cares are the guys in the locker room and our families. And, Brad, like I said, Brad is a winning basketball player. I love coaching him. He's one of the best guys to be a franchise player on the court and off the court. The guy does amazing things in the community. But like I said, he would be an MVP talk if we can get some wins. And we will. We got our guys coming back. But he's done a great job of leading us during his difficult times. And like I said, nobody's ever done this before. I mean, you can't prepare for this. COVID is real. It's not a hoax, and it's real. I'm just glad all of our guys are coming back healthy. And then we're ready. The next couple of games, I think we should have a nice little rhythm. We're going to have 15 games in February to make up some of these games that we've missed. But Brad is a winner, and I can't never say that enough. But I enjoy coaching him. He's like the perfect guy for a franchise to lead a franchise.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, no one's ever been through this kind of situation before. Who knew, Scott, that you get to a hotel at 4 a.m. and all you would want to do was just go to a practice court? But that is the situation we have found ourselves in. Thank you so much for stopping by today. We really appreciate it, and best of luck in this next stretch.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys, so that is really the Washington perspective on things, but I do want to get to the larger league perspective and also what's going on going forward with Bradley Beal. How long can this situation hold? So we're going to bring in now our senior NBA insider. We're fortunate to have Adrian Wojnarowski with us today, too. So, Woj, what can you tell us from the Bradley Beal side of things?
Well, Rach, I talked to Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports. He's Bradley Beal's agent yesterday evening, and he told me that right now Bradley's focus and his focus with the Wizards is just on trying to get this season turned around and trying to get this team on track. And I think Beal, when he signed that extension, adding on a couple years onto his deal. Remember, he's under contract next season, 21-22, has a player option for 22-23. He knew that there was going to be a period here that they needed to see growth, and that he wanted to see, I think, where the Wizards could go as an organization. John Wall was coming back. Obviously they brought in Rui Hachimura. Thomas Bryant, that was a significant injury, losing him for the season. This isn't the team they imagined going into this year. But the one thing about Beal, and I think the relationship he's had with that organization, is he's not impetuous typically with what's going on, and he has been extremely loyal there. I think people were surprised when he decided to do that extension, given where the team was. Now, the trade deadline is March 25th, and so that's less than 2 months away right now. And there's been no indication, and you talk to other teams who are all over the league monitoring the Beal situation closely and looking for any inkling to think that he might be coming available. And teams typically will know before anybody else does. Before we even report it, they will know that there's an opening there, and none of them sense that now. And so I think for Beal, listen, things change, but right now, trying to get this team back on track. But there's no question, I think his future, certainly his long-term future, Rach, is very uncertain there. And I think even once we get to the trade deadline, if he starts to think about what is my future here, is that something you want to address at the trade deadline in the middle of a pandemic? Or do you want to address it perhaps in the off season when you can see a broader landscape of what the league looks like, what the future of the Wizards look like? And I think those are all things that Beal and Mark Bartelstein are going to have to weigh together.
I love that behind-the-scenes insight, because I think fans sometimes think, oh, we're stirring stuff up or asking these questions. We start talking about stuff after the teams start talking about stuff, and it is one of the number one topics of conversation, right, among other front offices, is what is going to happen with Bradley Beal, because he could be such a game changer to the balance of the league. That's how big a deal this is as a part on a team that already thinks it might be headed for championship contention. Woj, what are the teams that are having those discussions most intensely and just waiting for something to change in the Beal Wizards dynamic?
Well, there's not a team in the league who wouldn't love to find a way to add Bradley Beal. And even look back to the James Harden talks. I'm not sure every organization felt they were equipped, they were a fit for James Harden. No one denied his talent. But would James Harden want to stay here? Would he fit in with the guys we have? Are there the relationships there that might be needed going in to make it work? Do we want to give up all these assets for a player who, could walk on us? All those questions. I think with Beal, I think there are a lot more teams who know, who believe that you could just fit him in with other great players, and he'd find a way. He'd add to your culture. He'd add into your environment. And certainly on the court, a player at 27 years old who, still has, who's very much in his prime.
Yeah.
I think for teams like Golden State or the Denvers, teams who have assets, who are contenders, but also when they're healthy, but also have, let's say if you're Golden State, you've got that Minnesota draft pick. If you're Denver, you've got a great young player in Michael Porter Jr. You got an all-star in Jamal Murray in the backcourt. Now, I'm not saying they would do it, but you look at those teams and say they'd have enough to get in the conversation, and that's going to be the decision for teams all over the league. Of course, the Lakers and Clippers would love to be able to get involved in that, but do they have the draft picks? Do they have the young players it would take that would top a package from some other teams? Maybe not. And so, but you're going to see it will be a frenzy if and when, Bradley Beal gets on the market, and he will have a say in where he goes because of his contract situation. Unless a team is just willing to do a trade, hope to convince him to stay long term, they would have him under contract next season. But that's pretty risky for somebody who might be having to give up you will be giving up multiple first-round picks, probably your best young player. So I think those are all considerations for teams, but boy, I don't think there will be many who aren't going to make a call and sit and brainstorm and try to figure out, could we get Bradley Beal if he becomes available?
So fascinating. The entire league watching Washington, D.C. right now. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you back here.
Guys are Rachel, when you're as competitive as
Coach Scott Brooks. We heard from Woj in our last segment. But now I want to bring in Matt Barnes and Paul Pierce, former Wizard Paul Pierce, I should point out, to get the players' perspective on all this. Paul, what can the Wizards do to make Beal happy at this point? Because he appears to still be interested. He got up there again last night and said, I want to set things right and stay with this team and be with this team in this way.
Let me tell you something, Rach. I was in the same circumstance in my 9th year, and Bill, I believe, is in his 9th year. He wants to be recognized as one of the game's best players, and, you don't get that same recognition when you're on a losing team. And so I really clearly understand this frustration, but I think they have to play out the year, and then after the year, reevaluate things, because that's the same thing that happened to me. I was at the boiling point where I was ready to get traded. If we didn't do anything, then here comes Kevin and Ray in my next year. So I'm not sure if they're capable of doing that, bringing in those type of players the following year. But I truly understand his frustrations. And if they can't do anything by the summer, I would really suggest trying to trade them and get younger assets and give Bill at least an opportunity to be recognized as one of the game's best players on a contender.
I love Scott Brooks. I almost kind of felt bad when he was telling his stories, but similar teams have gone through similar issues. Bradley Beal's a consummate pro on and off the court. But in my eyes, anything short of getting KG and Ray, which that ain't happening at the end of this year, the only thing to make Brad happy is you got to trade him. I feel like I've been saying this for the last 2 years. Tremendous talent. The thing about Brad is he's going to continue to work hard and continue to say the right thing. He's not going to sit out. He's not going to disappear. He's not going to cause a distraction. He's going to continue to say the right thing. But to me, in my opinion, the only thing that's going to make him happy, honestly, is to be able to trade him and let him, enjoy his prime on a team that has a chance to win a championship. Because this team, even healthy, even with guys coming back, they're still not a very good team.
And it will be interesting to see what they can do when guys come back. I will say the litany of what this team has been through in the past couple weeks, it is insanity. You look at their off and on list, who's out one day, who's not out one day, injuries coming in, Russell Westbrook's in, then Russell Westbrook's out for a week. They pulled Bradley Beal just in case Jason Tatum made him sick. When Jason Tatum had a COVID positive test, then Brad comes back in the lineup, then more guys go out, then they start canceling and postponing more games. It has been a mess. They have not even seen each other. You heard Scott say they're only meeting basically in the parking lot to come back and forth from testing. So I think it's fair to give them a little more run here. As he said, they're playing 15 games in February to try to make up for some of these post moments. And we'll see what happens going into that March trade deadline. So it's an interesting situation. All right, guys, it is time for, oh, yes, I can hear it. I can hear it.
It's a make or miss league.
It's a make or miss league.
Make. Miss.
It's a make or miss league.
Make adjustments. Nets, Hawks, Kyrie going up and under for the circus layup here. Matt, I don't know if that was an unintentional tribute to MJ or just Kyrie being Kyrie. Remember, Jordan did it to the Nets. Kyrie is one of the best finishers in the game. Either hand, his body control, his ability to hang in the air, the ability to take contact with his stature and still be able to finish. He's definitely one of the best finishers in the game.
Best finishers under the rim. Definitely.
Right.
I love watching Kyrie around the basket. One of my favorite things in the game today. So good. When you're putting up MJ video in comparison, you're doing something right. All right,
that's crazy.
Billy Hoyle, Bucks Raptors. Dante DiVincenzo gets way up for the jam. Did you know Dante had bounce
Billy
like that?
Hoyle.
You know. Miss Billy Hoyle. You get it?
That's a great comparison, Billy Hoyle. Wow, a lot of kids don't even know who that is. Come on now, who's Billy Hoyle?
As Bomani Jones calls him. Go ahead, guys.
The lane opened up so wide, I was just glad he finished it. Sometimes when you get those wide open lanes and you're not accustomed to dunking, something ends up coming to bite your ankle or you try to dunk it too hard, but luckily he finished.
Bomani Jones, one of his favorite players, he says, I love white Dante. There you go. All right, make cookies. Crunch time in San Antonio. DeJounte Murray picking Kemba's pocket and then runs down for the slam.
Oh, man.
Matt,
Kemba's still trying to get his rhythm.
He is, right?
I mean, he's only been back a few games. You're not going to see that probably the rest of his career with the clock winding down, with a chance to put the game on ice or tie the game. I mean, you're not going to see that much from Kemba Walker probably the rest of his career.
And you have to remember,
DeJounte Murray's a great young talent.
Yeah.
Got a chance to see him in Seattle when he was in high school playing against Jamal Crawford, and he blew me away. So it's no surprise that he's continuing to elevate his game in the league.
It is amazing. You know, Jason Tatum was saying last night, because he was out with COVID, that this is the first time they've kind of all been together in a while. And you saw that last night, Paul. You're right. All right, missed assignments after a Heat turnover. Jokic diamond up Gary Harris with the football pass.